The night sky fills the city, and the sound of crickets chirping is the only sound that echoes. Inside the house, someone keeps clicking the mouse incessantly. He is an action figure with generous and beautiful attributes of a female figure. The young man is playing and asks the healer to do something. The situation is tough and he needs help as soon as possible. His dedication and effort are so intense that the mouse might not survive. Even the keyboard is not spared. He is too immersed in the game and he doesn't notice the bluish glow emanating from one of the keys. The virtual enemy he was facing was finally defeated, making him celebrate. The game congratulates him for the result, showing a victory message. His virtual buddies are also happy because they believe they belong to the best guild in that game. One of them thanks the leader, as they were the first to defeat that new boss. Another buddy thanks him as well, looking forward to the next day's mission. The low-level mage is grateful for being taken along, even though she wasn't very useful. Amid all his compliments, the boy feels happy to be recognized by his virtual friends. The truth is, he laments not being that popular in real life too. Soon, reality hits him like a brick to the head. He is in his dark room alone. That sense of accomplishment fades as he realizes that is not his real life. He is not dedicated to his studies, he is not tall, he is shy, smelly, has pimples, liver cirrhosis despite being a teetotaler, one leg longer than the other, and is almost blind. He also wishes he could be the center of attention, but it's a shame that in real life, he doesn't know how to level up. This makes him daydream several times throughout the day. All he wanted was to be a hero, with a body sculpted by hard work and recognized by his peers. But what he really wanted was to be pursued by beautiful women. So he imagines what it would feel like to be desired, and he wouldn't refuse any woman. There would be enough nerd friends for everyone. That would definitely be a wonderful life to live. Distracted in his daydreams, he noticed someone was messaging him in the game. It's the new mage who joined the guild recently. Since they had already cleared the dungeon, he couldn't imagine the reason for her contact. She is suggesting they meet in real life, which left him quite excited. It didn't take long for excitement to be the only thing visible on his face. However, soon his happiness fades and he starts thinking about possible problems. It could be an old man wanting to molest him. This is definitely a repulsive scenario for him, but he recognizes that he shouldn't dwell only on the worst case scenarios. Besides, he has no money and doesn't look good, so it doesn't make sense for him to be a target. And if he really doesn't want to be alone for the rest of his life, he will have to do something eventually. So they scheduled to meet on Saturday at the city park. This made him so anxious that his shout echoed audibly through the night. The noise was so loud that a neighbor woke up and yelled at him as it was already late at night. The days passed and Saturday arrived. The little yellow alarm clock rang incessantly. With the noise, the boy wakes up and turns off the clock. Properly dressed, he takes the first step outside his house. Spring makes the trees look so beautiful around the area. He had finally arrived at the agreed place at the city park. He just needed to cross the street, moistening his fingertips with his tongue. He adjusted his bangs in an improvised way. He even gave a final touch to the bouquet of flowers he was holding. His bow tie is perfectly symmetrical. Despite feeling anxious, he hopes that from now on he will become a new man. The pedestrian signal started beeping. He can't describe what he feels, whether it's anxiety or nervousness, but he knows that the closer he gets, the faster his heart beats. This reminded him of the times he was bullied at school. He wanted to be brave, but he also wanted to run. The sun is shining beautifully, and the trees are blossoming. He hopes the date will be just like in his dreams. Trying to be realistic, he accepts that he should already be happy just for having the opportunity. But as he thought, he got distracted by the signal, and as he started crossing, it was already red. However, he didn't notice this. Taking his passionate steps across the street, he fails to see what's happening around him. Some people even start shouting, trying to warn him. A truck driver initiates a sudden brake. The rubber of the tires is pushed to the limit to maintain the stop. The truck driver tries to honk while his vehicle continues to advance dangerously across the crosswalk. Everything happened too fast, and the collision was inevitable. The sound of plastic breaking and bones shattering filled the air. Several meters away from the vehicle, his body lay motionless. Someone approached in shock, trying to provide some help, but the extent of the injuries was irreversible. People started gathering and someone tried to call for help. The harsh scene brought that small part of the city to a standstill. There was nothing else he could perceive, only a sudden calm. It was as if time had stopped. But he knew that everything he had dreamed of was now gone. Besides being good at games, he hadn't done anything remarkable in life, nothing he could be proud of. Fatigue was now all he felt flooding his being. After the darkness came a light and an image from the system. He didn't know what was happening or what he had logged into. He asked what voice that was, but it said it was his system, and thought he had already figured things out by now. But all he knew was that he had been hit by a truck, and it said that's why he was reincarnating. He imagined he was dreaming, and the system said it needed to finish talking, which made him start shouting, thinking it was a dream, trying to wake up. The system finally said it was fed up. Continuing, it said he had reincarnated into a new world and that he should accept it, and he wanted to know if he could refuse. But the system said that if he completed all the missions, he could reincarnate back into his original world, and he said he would do it immediately. It told him not to rush as it wouldn't be over in a day or two, and that he needed to get used to his new body. The boy noticed his hands were missing, saying there was a puddle of water in front of him and asked him to look at it as an image is worth 1,000 words. Trying to move, he noticed he was hopping. The water was as clear as a mirror. Scattered across the ground, there were several snails. Finally, the boy saw his reflection. It gave him an enormous emotional shock. He was taking time to process it, but he had become a mushroom. After seeing himself, he hopped away. He couldn't understand why he had become a mushroom. The snails looked at him suspiciously. Looking at them in terror, he wanted to believe that all of this was just a dream. Those snails were too strange, and they were chewing grass like ruminants. The only sound there was the sound of chewing. The chewing became a cruel mantra. They chewed and chewed the grass non-stop, a disturbing and haunting sound of that new world. The little mushroom was too frightened. After that impression, the system welcomed him to brave mainland. But it was too much, and he seemed to be in shock. Trying to console him, the system said it was indeed hard to accept everything that was happening. But there was no time to lose. The game had begun. It was going to place the information directly into his mind. He couldn't understand anything. But now, a whirlwind of information was flooding into him. That land was full of magic and wonders, with various regions, and it was known as Brave Mainland. In ancient times, monsters and humans cooperated. The latter were responsible for manual labor, and humans gifted with magic helped monsters live and prosper. In those days, learning was mutual, until one day, things changed. The demon lord Golem broke the peace and started attacking humans, attracting several monsters to his cause as they believed themselves superior. This also united humans under banners. Following the king's orders, it began to subjugate the monsters. Legends say that the 6 most powerful ones united to seal Golem, but because he was so powerful, his body was separated into 6 pieces and placed in different locations. Thus, they were scattered randomly across the land. One of them is the Castle of Time. Another is the Pentachrome of the Desert, the Sunken World, the Stormy Pastures, the Source of the Volcano, and lastly, the Land of the Dead. After all this, the monsters and humans could not return to their previous state, and even with Golem's sealing, some of his followers still roamed freely. They constantly brought destruction to the land, trying to bring Golem back to life. That's why he was reincarnated, to prevent Lord Golem from returning and destroying the land. Golem's followers had already begun preparations to break his seals. Time was running out. After the explanation, the system wanted to know if the player had any questions. He wanted to confirm if by preventing Golem's return, he would be able to go back to his world. And once again, the system confirmed it. This only made him more upset, as he wasn't one of the 6 most powerful. He was just a mushroom. Hopping in anger, he ended up slipping. The feeling of imbalance ran through his body. His mushroom body had fallen to the ground. The system asked him to wait and get used to the body, but it hoped he would learn quickly, because his first mission was about to begin. The boy made a tremendous effort to stand up. That only ended up leaving him exhausted. He complained to the system, saying that he could at least be a creature with limbs, but instead, he became a mushroom. Using all his strength, he tried to get up again. But he fell again and was already feeling hopeless about achieving anything if he couldn't even stand up. The system said the game would continue, whether the player was prepared or not. His first mission was to survive, and the reward would be either body toughness or limbs. Time began to count down, 3 seconds remaining, and the snails started fleeing. One of them hid in a bush. Another climbed a tree vine. The boy remained lying on the ground. The mission started. He had 59 minutes to survive, and the system said they were coming. A portal began to glow from within. Terrified, the boy wondered who these people arriving were. A vortex formed inside the portal. The countdown finally reached 0. It was soon possible to see a boot stepping out of it. A crowd of children entered, seeking destruction, as they wanted to complete their requirements to change classes and become brave. His small body started trembling with fear. The terror made him manage to get out of there, hopping a few times. Hiding behind the tree, he imagined that if they came there to kill monsters, he was in danger. The little boy wielded his stick, which granted him an additional attack point. With one strike, he sent a small snail flying. Grabbing the clawless-line stick from his hand was worth it, as he managed to defeat a red snail in a single blow. Another boy removed the snail from its shell. Its shell trembled on the ground. Crushing one with a rock, the boy said it was better than his friend's stick. A green snail tried to escape that carnage. It tried to use all the speed it had, but it ended up being caught by a hand. It looked back in terror. The sweet girl asked if it would be her companion when she became a beast tamer. Filled with hope, they let a smile escape. But she needed ingredients to change classes first. The snail was gutted alive by the girl. She stored its shell. Only 9 more were needed. That was a common storage pot with a capacity for 10 items. The mushroom watched all that, realizing that from the monster's perspective, humans were the true monsters. Unexpectedly, something happened in the garden. A boy was thrown against a rock. That blow had ended his life. He was immediately teleported to the beginner's village. He lost his stick, as well as 100 experience points. The other children looked at what had happened. That was a level 3 Papa Snail, riding a skateboard and having little patience with troublemakers. This one was different from the others, and the mushroom wondered why he could see its information and level. The system said that was his evaluation ability, and to understand it better, he should check his own status. That shell was one of the rarest for this task. and all the children wanted it. They wanted to kill it together and then decide who would keep the shell. But the children were unable to subdue it. One by one, they were defeated. Little by little, they disappeared, until the last of the weak ones fell to the ground. One of them remained behind and thanked the newcomers for weakening it, as now he would kill it. But the Papa Snail was furious beyond measure. That level 4 student sought revenge ever since he lost to the snail. The Papa Snail charged into battle with all its might. They were about to clash violently. Taking the opportunity, it bit the boy's foot. Its bite was fierce and impactful, but the boy merely shook his wild boar leather boots, which increased his defense by 5 points. The boy had prepared for 2 months, and the snail was without its skateboard, his speed weapon, and now with his sword, he was unbeatable for it. Tired, the snail spat but remained resolute. The mushroom knew that monster did it to protect its family, so he began cheering out loud for the Papa Snail. But it was to no avail. It was already dead. It was difficult but expected since it was the rarest ingredient. He finally obtained the Papa Snail's shell. That gave the boy 20 experience points. With that item, he could finally become a knight. In the face of all this, the mushroom trembled with fear. He had no hope of surviving and hoped someone would save him. A boy advanced cautiously through the forest. He heard something in those bushes, and it could be a family of snails. He gently parted the bushes with his hands. What they found there wasn't a snail, but rather a mushroom. They screamed in terror at their discovery. The mushroom was also terrified for having been found. It was his end. He was sure they would kill him. But the boys immediately fled, warning the others that there was a monster mushroom there. So he wondered if they were really afraid of him. The system confirmed it and instructed him to check his own attributes. Deciding to give it a chance, he commanded the attribute panel to open. He was a level 5 mushroom with a resurrection coin, 36 health, 22 mana, and he was a monster. Being level 5, he was the most powerful being there, because the strongest after him was a level 4 boy. A bit more enthusiastic, he wanted to see what abilities he had. He had 2, Appraisal and Mushroom Charge. Appraisal was what allowed him to see others' information, so the charge must be an attack since it didn't consume mana. Even though they were basic abilities, they gave him a chance to completely dominate the beginner's village. He thought he was playing on an impossible difficulty level, but now he believed everything would be easy. With the roles reversed, he began searching for his victims. He spotted some children killing snails. It was time for them to witness his power. Determined, he executed his attack ability. He managed to hit 2 of the children. This made them collapse unconscious on the ground. The boy and the girl vanished from the area. The mushroom not only found it easy, but he also gained 5 experience points for each of them. But the other boy appeared, wondering what had happened. The mushroom turned to him maliciously. This wasn't the time for mushroom monsters. The boy was terrified. He climbed up a vine to try and escape. Fearful, he climbed the rope as high as he could. A monster of such a high level wasn't supposed to be there. Looking up, the mushroom didn't believe the height would protect the boy. Concentrating his strength, he jumped. His head managed to hit the vine. He tried again, only hitting the vine. This time, he attempted to grab it with his teeth. Not having hands was complicated, and it seemed he would have to wait for the boy to come down. He moved away from the platform, hopping. Then he entered the forest bushes. He continued hopping, searching for more targets. But a rock was thrown at him. It hit his head directly. Not only did he feel the pain of the impact, but he also lost 2 health points. Now he wanted to know who the reckless one was who had attacked the king of the forest. The boy had gathered with his friends. The strongest among them was at level 3. The boy called his friends, which could give him more experience, but it was also much more dangerous. He firmly leaped on the ground. That mushroom wasn't a common mushroom. In front of the boys, he executed his move. The mushroom charge was now underway. The shield of the chubby boy granted 8 defense points, and he managed to withstand the attack. But his shield broke, and he asked his friends to form a formation. The boy with the glasses and the girl would go on one side, and the one with the helmet on the other. The 2 began running away. Meanwhile, the boy with the helmet threw another rock at the mushroom. It was a critical hit, taking away 4 health points. Feeling that pain, he was determined not to forgive them. On the other side, more rocks were being prepared. The boy with glasses and the girl threw a barrage of stones. This strategy was also used by the boy with the helmet. Those rocks began hitting the mushroom. That was definitely hurting him. Each stone took away 2 health points, and his attack was still recharging. As soon as the cooldown ended, he attacked them once again. The chubby boy grabbed another shield. The mushroom was close to hitting them, but the chubby boy managed to protect them at the last moment. Wielding a sword, the boy with glasses charged for the attack. The other friends cheered for him to defeat the monster, but the mushroom managed to dodge the attack. Even though he was slashed on the tip of his head, there was an intense and excruciating pain. The strength of the weak united can overpower the strong. He had seen this before when he played with his friends. The tanks absorb the damage while the others attack. If he doesn't attack them all at once, he will end up perishing. He was surrounded and the children were oppressing him. With almost no health left, he began vomiting from the pain. Finally, he collapsed to the ground after so much beating. He was on the verge of losing consciousness. The children gathered, checking if he was truly defeated. Then they started celebrating for having defeated a monster mushroom. However, the girl noticed that she hadn't received any experience points yet and asked if her friends had. The mushroom pretended to be dead on purpose to have them all within his reach. Enraged, he began his counterattack. That gave him enough experience to level up.